Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Brandon Leopoldus with us. He's founder at Leopoldus Law in LA. We're going to talk about sports law today, topic that's really exciting to me. Brandon has represented various professional sport franchises, unions, Olympians, professional athletes, sports professional, musicians, and obviously entertainers in LA. We're going to talk about that as well. He has an impressive resume, but I want to get right in the convo. So let's start. But before we do, this pod is presented to you by podper.com. If you want to start your own podcast, scale it, and monetize your podcast, you can go to podpire.com. Brandon, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about what you're up to nowadays.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's kind of funny. I always like the origin story of where people started, where they came from, all of that, because it's always unique to each individual and kind of that path to where they are today. And I grew up in Colorado Springs, in the shadow of the Olympic movement. My sister, who's a little older, was an Olympic level gymnast, and so I always kind of looked up to her, but I thought we were the same. I was pretty naive. I was playing little league baseball. I wasn't good at it, but I had a lot of fun. And I just thought when we drop her off at the gym, I'd go, play baseball for an hour or two at the park, and then we'd go back to the Olympic Training Center to pick her up. I thought we were just playing our sports and this was normal. Realized pretty much when she went to Penn State and was recruited that something was different. They weren't going to recruit me for much anything. And I was okay with that. I just didn't realize that there was a difference really until I got to high school. And so in high school, I was a late bloomer, not very good at sports, wanted to continue on. And as a summer job, got a job umpiring Little League Baseball and really liked it, had no idea what I was doing, but started to meet other umpires. And then I eventually met some of the pro guys that were coming through our minor league town, and they said, you should go to umpire school. And I didn't know what that was, but I knew that I really liked my summer job and I could see myself doing it full time. So I end up at umpire school in Florida. And apparently you can yell at me, call me names, and I can still get my job done, which apparently is a skill that some people don't have. And I got to bounce around the minor leagues, travel in the country for a number of years, umpiring professional baseball games, tried to get to the major leagues, didn't really work out. But after that career was over, on advice from somebody in baseball, they said, if you want a job in the major leagues, go to law school. It seems like everybody else does. I go to law school in San Diego, and at that time, all my umpire buddies were getting to the big leagues. Some of the players that I had in the minor leagues were getting to the major leagues. And so I sat down with a player that I had for a number of years, and he was there. He had been very successful, and he's telling me about all the problems that come along with not being successful in the major leagues, but making a lot of money. So financially successful, just not putting up the stats. And as he's telling me that, I kind of had those flashbacks when I was a kid, where same emotion of, is my sister doing the right thing? Should she go to this school or that school? Or what, how do you pay for the camp or the clinic? And it felt the exact same. And that's when I realized, instead of going and working in some other type of law, why don't I just continue to work in that field that I loved so much growing up and working when I was young, and instead just work with those people who I already understood. And so that was what I really catapulted me into sports and now entertainment law, living in Los Angeles.
For people that don't know, umpire is also being a referee,
Yeah.
well, I didn't know for sure. So interesting start of a career there. So
Yeah.
how quick did you evolve into being a founder of your own law firm?
I it took me 2 years and one day the first time I did it. The problem was I didn't know how to run a business. I just assumed, probably very naively, that if I was a lawyer, people were going to come see me. And so I, hung out my own shingle and nobody came to see me. The first couple of weeks were, it was just me, rearranging the pencils. And that doesn't work so well. I didn't really know how to run a business for those first several years. And being very unsuccessful led me to be successful later on, after I went and joined another law firm, kind of saw how they did business and realized, you know what, for the type of clients I want to work with, I think I can do this better. And it's more about not just being the technician, but it's about being that entrepreneur and finding the ways to actually make things work.
And then how long did it take you to get your first major athlete contract signed up?
The second time I went into business after I left that firm, it took me about 45 minutes. The next morning I had woken up and I had made a lot of connections here in Los Angeles. A lot of those power lunches, right? You hear the stereotypical let's do lunch type of a thing in LA, and that's real. You have a lot of lunches, a lot of coffees that don't necessarily produce immediate results, but as long as you're following up with people, your top of mind awareness kicks in. And when they think sports lawyer, entertainment lawyer, maybe they'll call me, right? And so when I told people, I just told one or two people that I said, hey, I left that firm. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do. They said, well, in the meantime, would you handle my clients? Because they're needing some people right now. And now that you're out of that firm, maybe you'll charge a little less. And sure enough, that started to build a client base. But it wasn't because I put out the shingle or because I'm a heck of a nice guy or I'm good looking or I'm in a part of town. It's simply because I was always hitting the pavement, going out to those lunches, meeting people, shaking hands, doing that hard work. The soft skills really paid off once I needed it to.
What do people require your services for? Normally, is it to protect them from shit from hitting the fan, or is it when the shit is actually hitting the proverbial fan?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. Honestly, what we try and do is we'd like to be there before the shit hits the fan, but it could just be, hey, you need the mess cleanup. And so we always like to be involved as early as possible. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're the lawyer early on in their career. Sometimes we just want to be around and have them know what we do. I look at it as being able to provide a service before we actually provide the service. It's kind of like going to a restaurant. Everybody has that favorite place for their favorite dinner, right? And you can probably cook it at home, but it's never going to be as good, right? You're going to try and do some things on your own. You might even draft a contract on your own. But when you really need it and it really matters, right? If it's your anniversary, you're taking your significant other to the restaurant. And so for me, I'm totally okay with showing them, here's how you cook it. Here's the things that are important. But I know that with my experience, that I'm going to do it a little bit better than they will. And so I understand that oftentimes it's a long game here in sports and entertainment. It's a relationship based business. Nobody just calls you because you happen to be a lawyer that says sports and entertainment. Shaquille O'Neal, Michael Jordan, they don't care that you're a lawyer. They care that you're trusted by the people around them. And so their lawyers are trusted people around their financial advisor, their business manager, their spouse. And so we just try and do that same thing.
Right. Okay. So first question, how do you outreach those clients? Is it folks you already know from your past experiences and then you grow that referral network organically, or is there actually some outreach, some cold emailing going on?
Yeah, a little bit of both. A lot of it is just brand awareness, right? Name recognition. Because if people don't know who you are and what you do, why would they ever call you? It's you're not going to have those phone calls come in. So instead, it's getting everybody in that ecosystem to know who you are. Sometimes it's YouTube videos. I found that LinkedIn was really successful for me when I was doing videos because that's where the professional service providers are for sports athletes, entertainers, people at high levels in sports teams. They might come across your video when they're waiting for their sandwich at lunch. And it's not about that first video, right? You're not going to sell somebody on one video. You're going to sell them, and especially in this space, on multiple videos, multiple touch points, multiple times they see your name in media, online. And when they're at that party and they see you, they may not talk to you, but eventually they're going to say, why is that guy always here? What does he do? I don't know him. And they eventually are going to either come up to you or maybe their financial advisor says, hey, I would like to introduce you to somebody, this Brandon Leopoldus guy. They're going to say, well, wait, I think I've seen him before, right? Or my CPA says that I should talk to him too. I guess I should probably talk to him. You need those multiple touch points so that way there's some familiarity.
Then how do you magnify trust? How do you scale trust? How do you accelerate trust? Because sometimes we're seeing, I don't know, like for example, Ty Lopez, he overdid the YouTube ads thing. Then a bunch of people tried to crush his reputation, I guess. So what's the equilibrium here? How do you actually scale trust?
Yeah, really good question. And part of that, at least in my ecosystem, I know Ty. Tide has always been a really good marketer. In law, it's not so much about the marketing because it's a trust-based business, right? If you're hiring a lawyer, you're hiring somebody to keep your secrets. You're hiring somebody to give you advice no matter who you are. You could be the biggest star in the world. They need you to not see them for the star, right? I'm not getting the autographs. They're there to have me tell them the bad news. They need somebody to tell them the truth. And so how do we build that trust? Is we get other people in the industry to trust us. We have to do that across our lives, right? I can't go out Friday and do a bunch of drugs and drinks and all of that stuff, post it on social media, and then go wrap my car around the tree. Nobody's going to trust you, right? Instead, you have to live that balanced life, and you just have to be in those right places. Going to Grammys parties are a lot of fun, but I'm not getting any business there, and no good business is happening after, say, 10 o'clock at night on awards weekends. I'm going home. As much fun as those parties are, I don't need to be there. And so a lot of times it's just living that trustworthy lifestyle and being around and providing that sound advice to others around them so that they can say, hey, look, I trust him. I think you should too.
So I don't want to, yeah, spend time like counter swing people or defending myself in court for people that invent stuff about me. So like, what is the equilibrium here? Because I also want to keep it real. That's part of my values, and I'm willing to even, yeah, keep it honest and have some backlash in return. What's the equilibrium here without sacrificing my value? Should I just like think a bit what I'm saying live on a podcast or at scale? And what if someone is actively trying to destroy my reputation? What should I do in that case?
Yeah, really good. And this happens a lot, especially with social media now, right? One tweet can take one person down, right? It doesn't always happen that way, but oftentimes it's that slow drumbeat of your competition trying to take you down, especially in your type of an industry. Anytime you're public facing, it's really important that people trust you, they like you, they know you, that they believe what's coming out of your content. And one thing that I always look at is when you're trying to protect yourself, it's just putting the good stuff out there, right? If you want to attack people, you certainly can. There's a lot of people that have made a lot of money that way. But are those going to be the people that you go to in that time of need? When you're trying to figure out how you market, how you scale, right? How you do ads, how you send those cold emails. Where am I going to go? I'm going to go to those people that have told me something that has worked for me. There's always going to be some detractors. The question is, what are they saying about you? And what can you do about it? Oftentimes the answer is nothing. They're just trying to pull you down because they're not where you are yet. And so oftentimes the best thing you can do is simply ignore them. It's not the fun answer. It's not the sue them for everything they're worth, but it's when it gets to that defamation level. That's where somebody says that you are really just drastic type of stuff. That's when a lawsuit would hit. I don't want to do that lawsuit. Instead, I want to show you ways to avoid that. The best way to avoid it is to get so big that their little voice doesn't matter.
Right. So bury them with ads. But I think if you stay, even when you stay good, there will always be some people not liking the stuff that you do.
Yeah.
In your case, your athletes, your musicians and entertainers, is it possible that you could go with rev share deals with them, or you just charge an hourly fee like most law firms?
Yeah, really good question. I'd love to do rev share deals, especially with some of these folks that are making a lot of money. For example, I have a artist who just won her first Grammy a couple weekends ago, and you bet I was in on the ground floor there. I would love a rev share deal. That'd be great. But sometimes you can do that in entertainment, and it's a small percentage. It's typically 5 to 10%, very small number wise. But we choose not to do that because we would rather have that athlete or entertainer pay for the service than us trying to ride the boat with them, because I look at it as a conflict, right? If I tell an entertainer that I'm going to take 5% of whatever she makes, and that's good for her because it's not money out of her pocket on every deal, but it could also be bad because I could try and push a deal along with her agent who's wanting that same percentage. We could be pushing a deal for her that may not be in her best interest. And instead, she may come to me and say, hey, they brought me this commercial for some strip club, right? And they're going to pay me $2 million. Well, if I'm going after the percentage, I might tell her yes, simply because I know that that's going to bring me some money. But if she's paying me for the service, I may just say, you know what, this probably isn't good for you. And here's the 15 reasons why. It may affect your brand deals. It may affect your family. It may affect the roles you get. And so instead, what we try and do is either flat rate a service. Oftentimes we know how much it's going to take, how long it's going to take for us to do something, or we'll do an hourly rate. Some entertainers and athletes that have a lot of work going on, we'll flat rate it for the month. And so we just are on a recurring basis. So they're not afraid to call their lawyer. Nobody should be afraid to call their lawyer. You shouldn't worry about how much it's going to cost for that phone call. Instead, we want that cost certainty so we have a client for a much longer time.
Why should they go with you and not with CAA, for example?
Sure. So CAA is an agency, right? Agents are there to get you work, right? So if you're a professional soccer player or football in Europe, right, their job is to get you on a team. And if they can get you on Manchester United, that's great. I just have to look up the phone number for them. I can't get you employed. But what we can do is work together with that agent where they do the on-field contract. We do the off-field stuff. So we help you try and put your money into an LLC for the commercials and that type of endorsement stuff. So that way you get taxed at a lower rate. We help you put that in investment property and cover it up and make sure that we're protecting that asset. When you're trying to get a fancy car, right? A lot of athletes drive really fancy cars. We're going to go through an auto broker that we deal with to get you a lower rate. That's not a typical lawyer experience, but we have some answers for questions that when people have a problem, we have to solve the problems. Sometimes they're coming to LA for a couple months to record an album. And they need a place to stay, but they don't know where to stay. And their agent may not be a help. So perhaps we're able to put them in a luxury apartment complex where nobody's going to necessarily care who they are because there's other stars of that same level at that same place. And perhaps that producer's staying in the same building as well.
That's very cool. What are your top objectives for this year?
Good question. So my top objectives, because I'm running a business too, right? We're not just waiting here. We have to make money. We have to continue to grow. We're trying to automate right now, because if we can automate some very high level quality stuff that we do on a regular basis, that means we can service more clients. Often that starts with trademarks. It starts with operating agreements for starting a new company. For sports, it's working with those youth club teams to get some of their contracts in place. When we can automate some of those things, that means instead of having, say, 10 of those clients, now we can have an unlimited amount because we just need the information from them and we can produce some high level results. We're already invested in that space. Right now, we're working through some of the kinks. I was doing that this morning, but that's really what we're looking at. We're big into AI. We think that that can be very beneficial as long as it has those right guardrails around it and it's provided by the right service providers. And so that's really what we're looking at. By the end of the year, we're hoping to have that first product that we can launch for our clients specifically. So that way they don't have to necessarily have that downtime either. They can put the information in. They know it's going to be good because we've already done all the safety protocols on it. And then they can get that document pretty quickly.
Last but not least, what would you tell a student that you're teaching nowadays? Would you recommend them to start their own firm, go work for a mentor that can teach them the routes? What would be advice that you would have for them?
This is a really good question. I get it a lot. I teach law school, so I'm big on getting as much education on wide variety of topics as you can. For some people, they want to learn how to be a good practitioner, right? They want to figure out how to do the job. Other people want to be an entrepreneur. And depending on how you are, how you're wired, maybe you want to run your own firm. Maybe you just want to be that lawyer that goes to the firm and sits in the desk, sits at your desk and does the work. That's totally okay. But if you have that entrepreneurial mindset, I think oftentimes when you're ready, go ahead and open up your own firm because you're just running a business. We're just selling different flavor sausage, right? Charles, you're selling a flavor sausage that I don't, and vice versa. And that's totally different. We might have different skills. We might have different ways that we actually deliver our product. But I think anybody that wants to start their own business should certainly take a look at it, listen to your podcast, get your content, listen to other people. I listen to a lot of that type of stuff. As a lawyer, I don't listen to a lot of lawyer podcasts. I'm listening to business and entrepreneurial podcasts because I'm running a business. while I am a lawyer, we're trying to grow and we're trying to run this business. So if you're into that type of stuff, if that's really what gets you going, I think anybody can run their own business provided that they have the right support and they know what they're doing.
Where can people find out more about you, Brent?
Good question. You can find me on the online. It's leopoldus.com right there. There's my last name.com. Otherwise, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm more active and engaged on LinkedIn. I respond to my messages there. I'm also on X, or Twitter, as I guess it is now. I don't really post a whole lot there. I use that as a good way to follow some news, to get some really good articles. But typically LinkedIn and online is the best place to find me.